This week in review begins with water and electrolytes. The electrolytes being sodium, potassium, and chloride. Remember that electrolytes are charged particles called ions. We talked about hyponatremia, where you have excess water in relation to sodium in the blood. This can cause edema, lung congestion, muscle weakness. It sometimes happens during the marathon when folks are replacing water but not the electrolytes that they lost through sweating. It can be fatal. Not a good condition. Delete that. So in the fluid compartments of the cell, we have the extracellular outside the cell and intracellular inside the cell. Sodium is the major extracellular electrolyte, while potassium is the major intracellular electrolyte. And water follows electrolytes. So when you have an excess of electrolytes in a component in the cell, the water will follow that electrolyte in order to maintain balance. This is a process called osmosis. While many of us may periodically suffer from dehydration, if it's chronic, meaning long-term, even mild dehydration is linked to these symptoms on the left. With aging, there's a greater risk for any number of reasons. We become less in touch with our thirst mechanism. People may be taking medications that cause them to lose water, and elderly who can't move are afraid of being incontinent. The different functions of water in the body. Remember, water is involved in every reaction that goes on in our body. We also looked at minerals, the inorganic elements that are found in nature and in our body. They're major minerals and trace minerals. Has nothing to do with importance, but it has to do with the amounts that are found in our body and also how much we need to consume in our diet. I also wanted you to pay attention to the fact that bottled water oftentimes contains tap water. PWS on your bottled water label stands for public water supply. I also have this in the video on the different caffeine content in coffee. I used to be able to tell folks how much caffeine was in drip coffee versus instant coffee, but now you have to look at the place that's making the coffee. Your questions, and today we talked about bone health and iron. There's calcium in the bone and calcium in our blood. The importance of that 1% in our blood will be maintained at the expense of the calcium in our bone. These are different components of the bone. Most of the calcium that's involved in our bone bank is found in the trabecular bone. And these fractures can heal, but if you have enough of them over time, they can reduce bone strength and lead to major fractures later in life. For those of you that take calcium supplements, I forgot to say that the body supposedly cannot metabolize more than 500 milligrams at a time. So keep that in mind if you're taking a calcium supplement with a meal. And let me just say that the 500 milligrams pretty much has to do with supplements, not with dietary intake. We looked at osteoporosis, the development of peak bone mass, how women lose mass after menopause, but depending on, your bone bank account, hopefully you will just draw on the interest and not the principal, thus reducing risk for developing osteoporosis. These are the different types of fractures that can occur. And we also looked at iron. There are different types of anemias. We just talked about iron deficiency anemia, how that is affecting the body because when you are lacking iron in the red blood cells, you can't bring oxygen from the lungs to the cells, and that can lead to the symptoms associated with iron deficiency anemia. Hematocrit is a blood test that can measure iron in your blood. Looked at the difference between heme and non-heme iron, how heme comes from hemoglobin. Heme iron is more bioavailable, but non-heme iron but you can improve the bioavailability of non-heme iron by consuming it with a source of vitamin C because it converts the iron from the ferric form to the ferrous form, which is more bioavailable. What I forgot to talk about was hereditary hemochromatosis, which is a genetic disorder. What happens is the body increases its absorption of iron from the intestine so that you have high blood levels of iron. While a low iron diet is one way to treat it, it's generally not recommended, but donating blood, that can be very helpful for you and the person who's getting your blood. These were your questions. Next week, you have Monday to work on your presentations and to complete your paper, which you will present on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to it. I will be in my office, which is right here in my son's bedroom, from 10 to 11 on Monday. But if you want to meet at other times, just let me know. All right? Be well.